Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark, or the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 2015 British made-for-TV drama, The Dresser.
The doctor said he'd come to the end of his rope and found it frayed.
Hey, that's not completely accurate, at least not all the time, not for right now. I do feel like I'm going crazy sometimes, especially with a 13-month-old daughter, but right now I feel like I'm doing pretty good. The Dresser has a 100% fresh rating from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a 60% fresh rating from the audience. I'm currently reviewing every movie that has a 100% fresh rating from the critics in chronological order. Now, this movie stars Anthony Hopkins as Sir, Ian Mckellen as Norman, and Emma Watson as her ladyship. This movie, for me, was all about Anthony Hopkins. He gives such a powerful, moving, fantastic performance. One of the best acting performances I've ever seen on screen. And this is someone who did Silence of the Lambs. Like, I looked up what people consider to be his top 10, top 15, top 20 acting performances of all time. And this isn't on there, which is absolutely crazy because he is stunning in this movie. He is riveting. I was moved so much by his performance in this movie. It is spectacular. And Ian Mckellen is also, of course, he is a fantastic actor as well. I mean, he, to me, is Magneto and Gandalf. So, of course, he is like a spectacular actor. But in this movie, Anthony Hopkins stole the show. He absolutely just destroyed it. He owned it. He was so good in this movie. So this movie is very topical for today, especially in today's political climate, because it is about Anthony Hopkins, who plays Sir. He is a man who is no longer in his prime. He is part of a Shakespearean acting troupe. So every night they do a different Shakespearean play, and he is considered to be like the best actor in this troupe of people. So he is irreplaceable. He is what makes the earth move when it comes to this acting troupe. Many people believe that it's time for him to retire because he forgets his lines. He forgets what plays he's doing. He was just found wandering the streets confused and was put into a hospital. Now, her ladyship was talking to Norman. Norman is Sir's dresser, so he gets him ready for the play. He does his makeup. He tells him what play they're doing. He gets his clothes ready. He is basically the guy that Sir goes to for everything. Now, her ladyship is trying to convince Norman to not put on the play. Now, they have never missed a play yet. Even though Sir is very old, he's getting on in age, they still have managed to make every single play. But she is begging him, like, don't make him do this. He's too old. He needs to retire. He needs to pass this on to someone younger. Does this sound familiar in today's political climate? Anyone? And he basically refuses. Norman says no, he's going to be fine. You'll see once he's on that stage, he'll do great. But the only problem is that he's currently in a hospital because he was wandering the streets and someone found him and dropped him off at the hospital. But Sir ends up like breaking himself out of the hospital, and he shows up and he starts getting ready to do Othello. Now, the only problem is that they are doing King Lear, and he keeps asking Norman, like, what play are we doing tonight? Because he can't remember. And Norman's starting to get a little worried because Sir can't remember his lines. He's trying to remember what the opening line was, and he can't remember it, and he has to keep asking, what play are we doing? What's my opening line? What makeup am I supposed to wear? Like, he's very confused, and he doesn't know what's going on at all. At the same time, they're having a hard time keeping people in their acting troupe because of the war. I think it's World War II that's happening around them, especially they hear bombs like dropping all around them. So they're short on staff, they're short on crew. It's a very tough situation that they're running into. There's also this girl who is kind of like an assistant to Sir, and he like makes sexual passes at her constantly that are very inappropriate. And later on, he even like does this with the door closed, and to an even bigger extreme. He like makes sexual passes at this girl. But eventually, Norman has convinced everyone that Sir is going to go on. or even if he hasn't, he's going to have Sir go on anyway. So as soon as like it's time for Sir to go on stage, he remembers everything. He remembers what play he's doing. He remembers what his lines are. He is just a phenomenal actor. He commands the stage when he's on stage, and everyone absolutely loves him. And, you know, he gets through the play. There's like an intermission in the middle. He ends up getting through everything. There's also a point in the movie where he's talking to Norman, and he's telling Norman that he's too old to do this and that he needs to not do this, and like what's going to happen when he's not around anymore. Like, what is Norman going to do? Now Norman shrugs all of this off. Whenever there's any talk about him retiring or any talk about him quitting, Norman shrugs it off. I personally think it's for personal reasons, because this is Norman's life and this is all that he's been able to do. This is all he knows. And if Sir retires, even though Sir is probably at a point in his life when he should retire, I mean, he can go out there and remember the lines like when he has to, but he seems to struggle so much with this, and he probably would prefer just being retired and on his own. But this Norman won't let him do it, because Norman is like, you have to keep going, you have to keep going. I personally think it is for Norman's personal gain and not because he loves Sir. So through the movie, so spoiler alert here, at the end of the movie, he gets through the play, everyone congratulates him and thinks that he's fantastic, and then he like goes to lay down and he ends up passing away. And Norman gets, of course, emotional about it, and he goes and tells her ladyship. That's basically the whole movie. The movie is an inner struggle with Sir, with himself, trying to convince himself that he is still able to do this, trying to convince himself that he is still up for this. Also, it's a conflict between him and Norman, because Norman wants him to do it, and even though there's flashes of Sir saying that this isn't something he thinks he can do anymore, it isn't something he thinks he can continue with, Norman basically makes him do it. He forces him to continue to do this, even though it's probably something that he shouldn't do. So that is the other conflict here. And then, of course, Sir is not very nice to anyone like around him. All the extras. There's one person who he says he refuses to talk to because he doesn't like this person. He's just really bad to everyone around him, and he's really rude to everyone around him. I don't know if that's just because of his age or because of his cockiness. In some ways, it almost makes his character not likable, especially what he's doing with this girl who he keeps hitting on. And she's obviously someone who like has a lot of respect for Sir as an actor, and she wants to like be coached by him, and she wants to learn from him because it's something she wants to do as well. But his only motivation is to like hit on her. It's very uncomfortable. It's hard to watch, and it makes you like think of his character as not a very good person. But I think Norman's character is actually worse. But at the same time, you feel bad for Sir because of what he's going through, because he has a hard time remembering, because it almost seems like he's being pushed to do this. You feel bad for him. And like I said, Anthony Hopkins just is a master class of acting here. It is absolutely phenomenal how good he is in this movie. I mean, of course, he's one of the greatest actors of all time, but wow, I was incredibly moved by this performance. Absolutely fantastic. That being said, I thought the movie was really quite good. It makes me want to see the 1983 one, especially if that one is supposed to be better. But yeah, just like a master class of acting. The plot was pretty simple. It wasn't that hard to get through. The movie wasn't that hard to get through. It was a pretty easy movie to sit through, especially if you're just like entranced by what Anthony Hopkins is doing. It's really easy to sit there and just enjoy it. And I give the movie an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you.